Welcome to Heartbreaker, your love radio.
The ballroom of the Plaza Hotel was a bastion of elegance, where crystal chandeliers glittered on high ceilings and every guest seemed to carry their own aura of mystery and charm. Among them, Jack, a young lawyer with a promising career, walked with the confidence of someone who knew the territory. The annual charity gala had attracted a diverse crowd, from philanthropists to entrepreneurs, all dressed in attire that spoke of their aspirations and legacies. Jack, however, was there not just out of social obligation, but with the faint hope that the night might bring him something or someone to make his heart beat faster. And that's when he saw her. Fernanda, in her flowing blue silk dress that moved like stormy sea waves, stood out not just for her beauty, but for the aura of tranquility that seemed to defy the hubbub around her. Her eyes met Jack's, and for a brief moment, the world around them seemed to fade away. Approaching with the delicacy of someone treading unknown ground, Jack was interrupted by Lisa, a mutual acquaintance who caught his arm with warm enthusiasm. "Jack, what a pleasure to see you here. Have you met Fernanda? She's absolutely amazing, though I must tell you, she recently went through a rather tumultuous breakup." The information was a thread of both curiosity and caution, but the attraction Jack felt was too palpable to ignore. He smiled, thanking Lisa, before turning directly to Fernanda. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Fernanda. Lisa speaks very highly of you." Fernanda responded with a smile that mixed surprise and a touch of melancholy. "The pleasure is mine, Jack. Lisa has a heart of gold, but she tends to exaggerate." The three of them talked for a while longer, and then Jack and Fernanda moved away from the larger group, finding a quieter corner near the enormous windows that overlooked Central Park. Their conversation flowed lightly and flirtatiously, exploring common interests and intriguing differences. Fernanda spoke of her love for art and travel, while Jack shared stories of his life in Manhattan and his passion for law. At the end of the night, they said goodbye at the entrance of the hotel, autumn leaves dancing in the chilly wind. The sun had barely risen over Manhattan skyscrapers, but Jack was already awake, the first rays of light filtering through his bedroom curtains. The previous night, spent in Fernanda's company, still echoed in his mind, a series of moments refusing to fade with the dawn. Unable to concentrate on anything else, Jack could only think of Fernanda's smile and the way she looked at him when she talked about her passions. It was clear that something special had begun to form between them, and Jack was determined not to let this connection be lost in the hustle and bustle of the big city. Jack realized that in their hurried goodbye, he hadn't gotten Fernanda's phone number. Now, the need to see her again became almost palpable, urgent. He knew who could help him: Lisa, the friend who had introduced them at the gala. After a quick breakfast, Jack picked up his phone and dialed Lisa's number. He waited, his heart beating a little faster, as the phone rang on the other end. "Jack. What a pleasant surprise. How can I help you so early?" Lisa's cheerful and somewhat curious voice answered. "Lisa, good morning. I need a favor. Could you give me Fernanda's contact information? Last night was incredible, and I'd really like to see her again, but I realized I didn't get her number," Jack explained, trying to keep calm and cordiality in his voice. "Oh, of course. Fernanda mentioned she really enjoyed meeting you as well. I'll send you her number right away," Lisa replied, her voice brimming with enthusiasm. A few minutes later, Jack's phone vibrated with a new message. It was Fernanda's number, accompanied by a brief note from Lisa encouraging him not to waste any time. With a smile he couldn't contain, Jack typed a message to Fernanda, inviting her for a second date. The following week, the sky over New York had dawned covered by a thin veil of rain, as if the clouds were also shedding their sorrows over the city. In a small cafe in the West Village, with fogged-up windows and a cozy atmosphere, Jack and Fernanda met for a morning coffee. The place was a perfect refuge, with its dark wooden interior and comfortable armchairs, offering a warm contrast to the gray outside. Sitting across from each other with steaming cups of coffee between them, the conversation that had started lightly soon took a more serious and introspective turn. Fernanda occasionally glanced at the wet street, the raindrops running down the windows forming winding trails. Jack, I feel there are things you should know about me, about what happened before we met, Fernanda began hesitantly. The cafe's soft light illuminated her face, revealing an expression of concern that Jack hadn't seen before. When you met me at the gala, I had recently ended a relationship. My ex-fiancé, he was a very possessive person. Our plans always had to align perfectly with what he wanted, with what he thought was best, she explained, her hands wrapping around the cup as if seeking warmth. Jack listened attentively, his gaze fixed on Fernanda. And how did you deal with that? He asked, his voice gentle. It wasn't easy. There were days when I felt trapped, suffocated. We had very different views on life, and that only became clearer as time went on. The breakup was inevitable, but no less painful, said Fernanda, with a sincerity that touched Jack deeply. The rain outside seemed to intensify with Fernanda's revelations, as if nature empathized with her pain. And he didn't take the breakup easily. That scared me for a while, the possibility that he wouldn't let me move on. Jack felt a mixture of compassion and protectiveness, a desire to understand and at the same time to protect Fernanda. I can't imagine how difficult that must have been for you. But I'm here, Fernanda. I want you to know that you can trust me, he affirmed, offering not just his words but his unconditional support. Fernanda smiled, a shy but genuine smile. Thank you, Jack. That means a lot. As the conversation continued, both realized that each revelation, each word exchanged, brought them closer. The cafe, with its cozy ambience and the constant rain outside, had become perfect for that moment. As winter settled over New York, the cold outside contrasted with the warmth building inside Jack's apartment, located in a charming old building in the heart of Greenwich Village. Night had fallen early, and the city lights twinkled through the windows, casting soft shadows on the walls as the fireplace crackled, filling the space with a golden, cozy glow. Jack and Fernanda were nestled on the couch, wrapped in a blanket. Soft music echoed in the background, complementing the atmosphere of intimacy and comfort. Red wine rested in glasses on the coffee table, and a photo album of Jack's travels was open between them, each turned page revealing more about his adventures and dreams. These photos are amazing, Jack. You've seen so many places, Fernanda remarked, admiringly. Jack smiled, his eyes meeting hers. I love exploring, but these places, they would be even better with someone special by my side. Fernanda's response was a shy smile, her eyes shining with a mix of emotion and anticipation. Maybe we could plan something together, a trip. Somewhere neither of us has been. The suggestion seemed to ignite a new spark between them. I would love that. Somewhere with mountains, perhaps? Where we could ski during the day and then sit by the fireplace at night, Jack proposed, his voice low and seductive. Fernanda nodded, the enthusiasm evident in her voice. That sounds like a dream, Jack. The warmth of the fire reflected the warmth of the connection growing between them. Finally, Jack took Fernanda's hands in his gaze serious and intense. Fernanda, these past few times with you have been incredible. I feel something very strong for you. Something that I don't want to ignore. Fernanda took a deep breath, her eyes not wavering from his. I feel it too, Jack. Something special is happening here, something I don't want to lose. Jack and Fernanda sealed that moment with a kiss, a silent promise to give a chance to the love burning between them. Jack, with a serious and penetrating look, took Fernanda's delicate hands in his, intertwining his fingers with hers. Fernanda, these past times with you have been incredible. I feel something very strong for you, a passion that I don't want and can't ignore. Fernanda, breathing deeply, kept her eyes fixed on his, a spark of desire shining in her gaze. I feel it too, Jack. Something special is happening here, an attraction that can't be denied. I don't want to lose this, I don't want to lose you. Moved by an uncontrollable impulse, they drew closer, and Jack pulled her nearer, their breaths mingling. Their lips met in a kiss that quickly deepened, charged with desire. Jack's hand slid down Fernanda's back, bringing her even closer, while she wrapped her arms around his neck, lost in the sensation of their closeness. The tension between them transformed into desire, leaving a trail of clothes as they made their way to the bedroom. The soft light from the fireplace cast dancing shadows over their intertwined forms on the bed, where they made love with a passion that consumed any remaining hesitation. The night extended in a whirlwind of caresses and passionate whispers, each touch and kiss deepening the bond between them. The ocean breeze gently caressed the Santa Monica Pier, where Jack and Fernanda walked side by side at sunset. The sky was painted orange and pink, reflecting the soft light on the tranquil Pacific waves. The scene was of an almost surreal beauty, perfect for such a significant moment in the couple's life. They had decided to take a short trip to California, an escape from the frenetic routine of New York, seeking not only rest but also quality time together. That day, in particular, Jack had planned carefully, knowing it would be a milestone in their lives. Stopping at the end of the pier, where only the sound of breaking waves could be heard, Jack looked into Fernanda's eyes. The gentle wind lightly tousled her hair, and he could see the reflection of the setting sun in her eyes. "Fernanda, since we met, every moment with you has been a revelation of how much love I can feel," Jack began, his voice firm despite the palpable emotion. "You have brought me joy, peace, and a love that I never knew was possible." Fernanda listened, her heart beating faster with each word. She held Jack's hands, feeling the warmth and slight tremor of his anticipation. Jack knelt down, taking a small box from his pocket. Opening it, he revealed a delicate ring, sparkling in the twilight. "Fernanda, would you make me the happiest man in the world and marry me?" Tears of happiness welled up in Fernanda's eyes as she nodded, almost unable to speak. "Yes, Jack. Yes, I will." With a radiant smile, Jack placed the ring on Fernanda's finger, and the two embraced, sealing their commitment with a passionate kiss. That moment marked the beginning of a new phase in their lives, a promise of a future together, ready to face whatever came their way, united and in love. As the sun finally set on the horizon, the couple savored a night of love and celebration, deeper and more intense than any they had ever shared. The night stretched ahead, filled with laughter and whispers, each gesture and word strengthening the bond that now formally united them. In their hearts, a certainty grew. They were ready to face the world together, with love as their greatest ally. On a starry night, Jack and Fernanda chose a fine restaurant to celebrate their recent engagement. The atmosphere was sophisticated, with soft lights elegantly hanging over well-arranged tables, providing an intimate and cozy setting. As they enjoyed a refined dinner, they laughed and exchanged loving glances, carefree about the outside world. However, the serenity of the night was abruptly interrupted by the unexpected arrival of someone from Fernanda's past. Her ex-fiancé, Michael, appeared at the restaurant, his gaze fixed on the couple. His presence was like a shadow that extended over the table, momentarily stealing the joy from their faces. Sensing Fernanda's discomfort, Jack squeezed her hand under the table, offering some comfort. Michael approached with a disturbing confidence, interrupting their dinner with a cold greeting. "Fernanda, I didn't expect to see you here, and I see you're with company." Jack, feeling a mix of surprise and displeasure, responded cautiously. "Good evening. I'm Jack, Fernanda's fiancé. Can I help you with something?" The tension between the two men was palpable. Michael, with a smile that barely concealed his intentions, continued. "I was just passing by and saw Fernanda. I just wanted to say hello. By the way, congratulations on the engagement." Michael's tone carried a slight irony, which did not go unnoticed by Jack. "Thank you, Michael. If you're finished, we would appreciate continuing our evening." Michael nodded, but his eyes lingered on Fernanda for a second longer, a look that spoke of stories not entirely finished. "Of course, I don't want to interrupt. Fernanda, always a pleasure to see you." Jack, with a brief nod, he withdrew, leaving a trail of discomfort. After Michael's departure, the atmosphere between Jack and Fernanda shifted. Jack tried to keep the conversation light, but Michael's reappearance had stirred insecurities that he struggled to hide. "Fernanda, are you okay? Does he still bother you?" Fernanda sighed, a gesture of frustration mixed with concern. "I'm fine, Jack. I didn't expect to see him, and it threw me off a bit. I'm sorry about this." Jack touched her face, trying to dispel the shadows that the visit had brought. "There's no need to apologize. We're in this together, remember? I just want to make sure you're truly free from that part of your life." Fernanda nodded, grateful for Jack's support. "I'm with you, and that's what matters. Let's leave the past where it belongs." The dinner continued, but Jack's mind was occupied with thoughts about what Michael's presence might mean for their future. The night that began with celebration ended with a slight veil of uncertainties hanging over them, as they both wondered if the shadows of the past had really been left behind. Days after an unforgettable encounter with Fernanda, Jack was leaving the office when his phone rang. The voice of a friend on the other end of the line brought disturbing news. "Jack, I didn't want to be the bearer of bad news, but I thought you should know. I saw Fernanda today. She was at a cafe downtown, and she wasn't alone. She was with Michael, her ex-fiancé." The words hit Jack like a punch in the stomach, triggering a storm of conflicting emotions. With a heavy heart, he thanked his friend before hanging up, feeling a mix of anger, betrayal, and confusion intertwining within him. As the sky painted itself with shades of orange and purple at sunset, Jack walked through the city park. The place, which usually was a refuge of calm and reflection, now felt like a labyrinth of tumultuous thoughts. The news of Fernanda's presence with Michael invaded his mind, and each quick step mirrored his growing inner turmoil. Arriving home, Jack decided he needed to confront Fernanda in person. He sent a short and direct message: "We need to talk. Please come to my apartment as soon as possible." Now, he waited, sitting in tense silence, trying to prepare himself for the confrontation that was to come. Finally, he heard the sound of the key in the door. Fernanda entered, looking anxious and a bit scared upon seeing the seriousness in Jack's face. She closed the door behind her, leaving the drenched umbrella aside. "Jack, what happened? You look troubled." Jack took a deep breath, his expression rigid. "Yes, I am troubled, Fernanda. A friend saw you today and told me he saw you with Michael. At a cafe. Together." Each word was measured, his voice firm despite the evident emotion. Fernanda hesitated, a glimpse of panic passing through her eyes before she composed herself. "Jack, I can explain. It's not what you think." "Then explain," Jack said, indicating the sofa for them to sit. "Because, to be honest, I'm trying to understand, and it's not easy." Fernanda sat down, taking a moment to organize her thoughts. "Michael reached out to me, said he needed to talk about something important. I should have told you, but I didn't want to worry you. It was just a conversation, nothing more." Jack looked at her, trying to read between the lines, searching for signs of sincerity. "Fernanda, this hurts me. Not just the fact that you met with him, but that you chose not to tell me. Trust is fundamental, and now, it's shaken." Fernanda ran her hands through her hair, frustrated. "I know it was a mistake not to tell you. I was trying to protect what we have. I don't want our relationship to suffer because of remnants of my past." Jack shook his head, not entirely convinced. "Fernanda, if we want this to work between us, there can't be secrets. Not like this. It just makes me question what you really feel for me." Fernanda reached for Jack's hand, trying to reconnect with him. "I love you, Jack. And I deeply regret my mistake today." Jack looked at her, love and pain clearly in conflict in his heart. "I love you too, Fernanda, but this can't happen again. The next night, Jack walked down the street. Spotting Michael leaning against a parked car, his steps became more determined. The tension that had been building between Jack and Fernanda, due to the appearance of her ex-fiancée, pushed him to take action. The dim streetlights barely illuminated Michael's figure, who watched with a challenging air as Jack approached. "So, you decided to show up," Michael said, with a provocative smile that only intensified Jack's anger. "I want to know what you're trying to do." Reappearing in Fernanda's life, Jack spoke firmly, stopping a few steps away from Michael. "You?" "I'm not doing anything she doesn't want," retorted Michael, his tone full of insinuations. That was enough to ignite Jack's fury. "What does that mean?" Michael shrugged, a gesture that exuded arrogance. "Why don't you ask her? Ask her about our meeting. Ask her about the kiss." The words hit Jack like a blow, and before he could contain himself, he lunged at Michael, shoving him hard against the car. "You're lying." Michael, however, reacted quickly, pushing Jack back and escalating the situation into a physical fight. The two men exchanged punches, each blow fueled by a mix of jealousy, anger, and betrayal. "I'm not lying, Jack. She still feels something for me. And you know it, or you wouldn't be here," Michael shouted, dodging a punch. Jack, breathing heavily, felt the pain of the blows, but the pain in his heart was even more intense. The idea of Fernanda kissing Michael gnawed at his insides, and the physical fight seemed to be the only way to deal with this overwhelming emotion. Finally, Jack managed to pin Michael down, holding him firmly against the ground. "Stay away from Fernanda. This won't end well for you," he growled, his voice laced with threat. Leaving Michael on the ground, Jack stepped back, his body and mind exhausted from the fight and the revelation. He knew he needed to confront Fernanda, needed to hear the truth from her, but the fear of what that truth might be haunted him. The deserted street echoed with the sounds of the fight that had just occurred, and Jack slowly walked away, each step heavy with the burden of betrayal and the uncertainty of what lay ahead. Jack was sitting in the dark of his living room, illuminated only by a table lamp, while the sound of rain beating against the windows filled the tense silence. His thoughts swirled around the whirlwind of emotions that consumed him since discovering the truth. He was waiting for Fernanda. He needed to confront her, needed to hear it from her lips. When the door opened, Fernanda entered, drenched and visibly shaken, closing the door behind her with a soft thud. She barely had time to hang up her wet coat before meeting Jack's piercing gaze. "Jack, she began, but her voice was quickly silenced by Jack's firm gesture, raising his hand. "I know about the kiss, Fernanda," Jack said, his voice cutting through the air laden with pain and betrayal. "Michael told me everything." Fernanda tried to interrupt, her voice trembling. "Jack, please, you need to understand." "There's nothing to understand," Jack interrupted, his frustration and anger boiling in his voice. "You think you can just deny it and everything will be fine? He told me everything, Fernanda. How could you do this?" Fernanda tried to approach, seeking some form of connection, some empathy. "It was a mistake. I was confused, but that doesn't change how I feel about you, Jack." Jack recoiled, as if her words were physical and painful. "How can I trust what you feel for me when your actions say otherwise? This wasn't just a mistake, Fernanda, it was a choice." The argument escalated quickly, each word from Jack sharper than the last. "You broke everything we had, everything we built together. And now, you want me to just accept this as a little slip." Fernanda, with tears streaming freely down her face, shook her head, desperate. "Jack, I'm really sorry. I never wanted to hurt you." "But you did," said Jack, his voice low, laden with resignation. "I think it's best if you go now. Go take care of Michael, since you decided he still has a place in your life. I can't do this anymore." "So, that's it? We're done?" she asked, her voice trembling. Jack stood up, walking over to the window, watching the raindrops trickle down the glass. "I think we are, Fernanda." With those final words, Jack gestured to the door. Fernanda, defeated and tearful, grabbed her soaked coat and opened the door to the cold, rainy night. She turned briefly, giving one last look of regret before disappearing into the darkness, leaving Jack alone with the echo of his pain and the end of their engagement. The room became quiet again, with only the sound of the rain and the weight of loneliness filling the space.